Prince Harry, what's he doing here? A 12 o'clock curfew in Vegas didn't sit well with me. He's a staunch defender of what he believes to be right and wrong, and he's happy to take the authorities on. Had been belted behind play. It was about to erupt. And they made it as hard as they possibly could to break us. He said, Brownie, we don't want you kicking the footy ever. He rang me, goes, mate, we might have a problem. You're getting suspended for bringing the game into disrepute.
Okay, welcome to BackChat, powered by Paywise in season 2025. We're in our Melbourne studios. This man, it's the third trio of the Brownies podcast. It's been wanting a long time to have him on the show, actually. He's come in disappointingly without beers. He tells me he doesn't drink them, and without some sort of mixer, but we are on the waters at the moment. Campbell Brown joins us. Hello, mate.
Thanks for having me, boys. Yeah, I was waiting for the call up. Jono and Dino did it last year with you, and, they were saying there's a power ranking, and clearly I'm down the bottom, which I'm okay with.
I reckon. I liked having Dino on because he's got the West Coast nuffy.
He is a proper nuffy.
Yeah.
Nuffy West.
So we got to connect over that.
Yeah, great. So it's going to be another tough year.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it will.
We can get into that in a little bit, but I reckon that podcast specifically gathered around, it could have been definitely three, I can't remember how you were, of the most hungover.
Yeah. Oh, boy.
Brownie couldn't even speak, and he can't. He can barely speak at the best of times. He's got throat things going on.
I think he came in with a Powerade. Like he
was grumbling away big time. Did you cop that on the potty a bit?
Yeah, a little bit. Because he's got the rough voice anyway. After let's be honest, he doesn't just have a handful. He has when he decides to pin the ears back, he has about 20 Carlton drafts.
He's a big man.
Yeah,
the words start coming out the side of the mouth and out the side of the throat. It was a great potty, but. I digress.
Yes.
First question we ask every guest on this podcast, Brownie. It's your greatest sporting achievement thanks to Tab Touch. We know you're a premiership player. You're an All-Australian. Hawthorn, great. Gold Coast, great. You can play AFL. Congratulations. A lot of other people can too. We'll get into that in a little bit. We want to know your greatest sporting achievement not on the AFL field. And I've seen some of this. I'd have to think you're pointing in one direction here, but you can maybe talk about your greatest sporting achievement.
My greatest sporting achievement, I guess, is representing Australia, which, not everyone can do, Brownie.
Not on this podcast.
Not on this podcast. Majority can on this one. Representing Australia playing fistball, which was a big achievement last year. Getting to New Zealand, played a tri-series against New Zealand, lost against them. But look, we got our sights set for the World Games coming up soon. So that's me.
So are we in the right path for greatest sporting achievement?
I assume you're alluding to kabaddi, kabaddi, as they call it over in India. Yeah, it'd have to be right up there.
Or have you got something better?
No, I enjoyed the fact that I've only ever done one marathon, and we did it in Antarctica on the Union Glacier, which was pretty cool with Tommy Little, Justin Quill, who's my media lawyer, travelling lawyer. Haven't got in trouble since we connected about a decade ago. He's the best. And another mate, Lockie Sparks. So that from I hate running. I'm an asthmatic. It was hard work. Yeah. So I liked that.
That's epic.
But when you've got 1.2 billion Indian kabaddi players, and you go over there and you sort of introduce the Australian team to the Prime Minister and you link up arm in arm and sing the Australian national anthem before the 2016 Kabaddi World Cup. That was a pretty great moment, albeit I had no fucking idea what the rules were.
I was going to say, how did you go?
We had no idea.
Poorly.
Yeah, we didn't know the rules. We didn't know the structure of the team.
Just rebooted it?
Yeah, we just rebooted it just before New Year's Eve this year.
I thought it was Dyson Heppel playing.
Yeah, Hepp was good. Billy Gowers was great. Hannah's, where he copped a couple of head knocks in training because I really put him through the ringer. They had to get him up to kabaddi speed, and he was on the end of a couple of head knocks.
P. Kennedy? Or Kennedy?
I added the captaincy over to Josh Kennedy too. Right.
He looks like he could still play for Sydney.
Yeah, they're ripped. Some of those boys. Hannah's, he's fit still. So there's a little reboot of kabaddi, which was good. We haven't heard too much about it since then, but I've been told there may be a World Cup coming up at the end of this year in India. So We'll see if they want the Australian team back.
If you'd like any West Australian represon, both players. I've never represented my country.
Yep.
I'm happy to put my hand up.
Once you've done it once, I feel like I could do it again for another sport. So
fistball, you'd make a good fistball.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Fist only.
It's a lot of forearm.
Yeah.
Fist.
Yeah, a lot of fist.
I like it. Congratulations. Whatever you represent your country, it's a great honour. Even if you don't deserve to to be there like we did in Kabaddi.
Mate, usually try to go back to the start with some of these chats. Interested to know what your upbringing was like. Know that got an old man that played a lot of footy, West Australian Hall of Fame, Mel Brown. But what was life like growing up for you?
Yeah, it was great. I grew up on the rough, mean streets of Peppermint Grove. So sort of sometimes I didn't know where my next meal was coming from.
Yeah. Which 5-star restaurant was getting served?
My old man's from Dowran, where Buddy was from. So, he moved down, went to Scotch as a boarder, obviously really young captain coach of East Perth. My earliest footy memories probably were when he took the South Fremantle coaching job late 90s and took him to a grand final there at South. So I'd go behind the goals and after a goal had been kicked, there'd be a dozen kids fighting over the footy down there at South Fremantle Oval. Always grew up loving football and wanted to play AFL footy. I remember moving to Melbourne when I was 9 or 10 years of age and the school teachers would ask you, what do you want to do when you grow up? And the kids would say, be a pilot or a fireman or whatever. I just wanted to play AFL footy, but I wasn't very tall, and I wasn't blessed with great speed or good decision-making or ball use. When you put it like that, and I had asthma. Yeah. So it was a fair way off, it's fair to say, especially sort of, like I won a league best and fairest in under 12s when you're skin and bone. But when the kids started to mature a bit more, 14, 15, 16, that's when I got left behind and, wouldn't make the Oakley Chargers under 15 squad and had to work really hard just to make the under 16 squad and things like that. So, a lot of deficiencies in my game, but with the help of really good coaches, a sprint coach, Bowden Babicek, who I'd probably dedicate most of my career to, and the support of an old man who was he was harsh but fair, I think you call it, an old school sort of parent.
Yes.
That didn't mollycoddle me at all if I put in a poor performance or a poor effort or I didn't train hard or he thought I was sooking or whinging. He certainly hit me between the eyes, which you don't sometimes appreciate as a 16-year-old, but I reckon it held me in pretty good stead and that's certainly how I will parent my 3 boys.
Well, I mean, just talking about your old man for just a tiny bit, and I wasn't sure when to bring this up, but I feel like now's the best time. I see a lot of stuff on the internet, but one of my favourite clips of all time involves your old man. He's fucking outstanding. Mel Brown, he was a coaching legend, played in Victoria, played in West Australia, coached across 3 different clubs in the Waffle. I believe he was coaching Perth, and I believe it was grand final day. I think he was about to coach the seniors. The Rezzies were out there just seeing the same things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So I just want for you, now in the media, I've seen you boundary riding. Can you just imagine, as boundary rider, going out to the coach of the opposition, watching him grab one of the opposition players by the throat, trying to fight him, getting pulled away by his own team, then going up to this person and saying, hi, Mr. Brown, just wondering what's going on out here. Him grabbing your microphone, snapping it, and then throwing it in the bin on the way out. Imagine copping that as a boundary rider.
I know.
Because that's your old
terrified as well. Because it's good, isn't it? He was prone to have the odd blow up. But he was a renegade. Off the field, he's just a gentle giant. To his grandkids and to the people that know him. But he's a staunch defender of what he believes to be right and wrong, and he's happy to take the authorities on. Many a time he got rubbed out or took the waffle on about interchanges, because back then when you took a player off, he was off for the game. You couldn't make an interchange. So there was a famous incident that he put a player called Cole Reevey back on because they had a few injuries, and he got it was clearly against the rules, but he did it anyway and got rubbed out for sort of the rest of the season. But the next year they bring in the interchange. And I think sometimes in sport and life you need those disruptors to get things happening, to make change. And he certainly was one of those. That was a reserves game that got out of control. I think Polly Farmer's kids. Dean Farmer had been belted behind play. It was about to erupt. And so he just walked out there and said, righto, get off, we're forfeiting the game, because I think the umpires have lost control of the game, and that obviously brought the game into disrepute. So when he was coaching the seniors, all the journos were trying to get to the huddle and interview him, and he didn't want to speak to him.
mate, that is at Perth Oval, I guarantee it, because the bin, it's a metal bin, it is still there. That exact bin is there, where the microphone of the journal, after he snapped the cord, thrown in the bin. I
think there's a few others. He got rubbed out and was told he wasn't allowed to set foot on the field, so he hired a cherry picker and got in the cherry picker at quarter time and three-quarter time, and it took him out over the fence and lowered him down, and he dressed the players. So he didn't actually set foot on the field, right? So, funny guy, great old man to grow up with, and it's probably his healthy disrespect for authority rubbed off on me a lot, and it's probably why I got into as much trouble on the field as I did, because we didn't really think too much about consequences. We just did an action or did what we thought was best for the team, and then you dealt with it later. Yeah,
I was going to ask that though. It's a little bit more serious. I think potentially that's a positive in a lot of ways as well. If you're talking about all your deficiencies as a player, and they're your words, not mine. A pro was your teammanship, that wanting to be with your mates and back them up and all of that, right? And it sounds like you learned it off your old man.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt about that. And certainly, when I got to Hawthorn, we weren't an overly physical footy club. We were a skillful side. We're probably known, at Hawthorn or around the AFL as a good-looking club. We had all the boys that had the blonde tips that did the Men for All Seasons calendar.
Were you in that?
I was one year. So was Hodgie, by the way. But Chicky and Johnny Hay and Crawf and those guys, great players. But we probably lacked a little bit of substance. So when Clarko took over, the main instruction from him was we need to have a harder edge about us, became the unsociable Hawks. And so between the old man and Clarko sort of saying to me, keep playing the way you're playing, because we don't want any of our good players getting rubbed out. sort of had a bit of a green light to do whatever I wanted. Within the rules, you wouldn't just belt someone by and play, but if there was someone there to be hit, you tried to do that back in the day, and it was accepted. Now you just can't do it with the concussion stuff, which has come in, which I'm completely for. We need to protect the players as much as possible, but you've got to remember it's still a physical game, and there are going to be occasions when a player does get tackled or does get a bump or a shot. Not every time a player gets concussed is it a reportable offence. And that's where I think the AFL need to get the line a little bit clearer, because I don't think Toby Bedford deserved to get rubbed out last year. And they challenged it. He did get off, Sanity did prevail, but there is going to be occasions that you execute a perfect tackle, and for whatever reason, the player's going to hit his head and get knocked out. And it can't be, that tackle's seen 10 times this round, 9 guys got up, so everyone gets cleared, but you unfortunately can get 3 weeks.
I speak about this all the time, and it's outcome over action.
Yep.
And I just find it bewildering, ruling on outcome, because you can have way more vicious action.
Correct.
It has malice.
Elbow.
Like blokes swinging and missing, like an attempted punch in the face, and they miss them, and it's no suspension.
Yeah.
And then someone clips someone in an incident that goes in a moment, and they're getting 6 weeks for head-eye contact. The outcome over action stuff's got to be so careful. I mean, the hottest one at the moment is the marking contest.
Yep.
Blokes getting pushed into it.
Yep.
This is my opinion. I used to one, be on the end of it if I was in front of my opponent, or give it back the other way. You're not trying to hurt anyone. You're trying to outposition your player. Yeah. I agree with you, mate. I just think sometimes I don't know how they're actually going to get themselves out of that without it becoming a non-contact sort of operation.
Yeah, well, and that's right. So I think apart from that, the game is in unbelievably good shape. Just it frustrates supporters, it frustrates the media, and it frustrates the players no end when there's that inconsistency around action and outcome. But they're doing a pretty good job.
You talked about being physical and sort of being unleashed a bit to have a bit of edge. what else did you have in your repertoire? Were you annoying players like behind the ball?
Oh yeah.
What were some of your tricks?
Well, back then you could get away with a little bit of elbowing in the back and
a little bit or
a lot. Just pest the players a little bit, and we didn't when I was playing my best footy. The full ground defence hadn't started yet, so I would Clarko would message me during the week and say, "Righto, mate, you've got Stephen Milne or Jeff Farmer or Scott Lucas, Nick Rewalt, Ash Hansen I played on, Matthew Pavlich." Like, he would give me a job and my job was to nullify them any way I could. Chopping the arm rule hadn't come in yet, things like that. So you could play to your advantage for a smaller guy. But my game really was judged on how many goals they kicked on me.
Yeah.
There were no handovers. You couldn't, get sucked up the field and your player gets out the back and, kicks 2 or 3 cheap goals and you blame it on full ground defence, all that sort of stuff. So I loved that component of the game. Put me on a really good small forward, judged me on, his impact on the game. And I think defenders a little bit these days, they're more inclined to wanting to get 20, 25 touches and run and carry and those kicks through the corridor, which you do need. But the negating, nullifying defenders, and the great one-on-one contests are gone a little bit.
Yeah,
you don't see them as much.
What was your what was the messaging on Naitanui when you were there's that good clip of
and I love that because I started forward that game against the Eagles and played there for 3 quarters, and all the hype had been around Nick Nat because he was going to be the next prodigy of the AFL. I don't know if it was his first or second game. Second game.
Just chatted to Nick about this.
Yeah, and
we can cross-check the story.
Yeah, you can cross-check them. And it was a wet night, and I think Tommy Murphy was on him, and he kicked a couple of really important goals to get him back in the game or even put him in front. So 3/4 time comes out, and Clarko says, "Mate, we're throwing you down back, full, maybe not full back, but you're on Nick Nat." And as soon as he saw this little mosquito come to him, right, he went deep and said, "Right, boys, clear out." And he had a hot hand too because he kicked a couple and the crowd were going wild at Subiaco. and my mindset was like, I'm going to test this young fella out. I don't care if it's his second game. He kicked a couple. He's going to be a star. Let's see what he's got inside him. And so I was giving it to him, and he was giving it back, and the crowd were roaring. And, I didn't know that the camera was panning onto us all the time, but every time it did for about 15, 20 minutes, he was like swatting me away. And Hodgie got him and drove him into the ground. That's what we like to do at Hawthorn, like be unsociable, test him out. But he responded to it. And from that, you go away going, he didn't whinge to the umpires. He didn't moan. He copped it. He gave it back. And I left the ground going, oh, geez, he's going to be a superstar, not because of his athletic talent, but he's got that bit of mongrel in him too.
I've seen the footage, and it looks like you had to say something after the game to him. It's not a. It was never personal. Yeah, you were like, mate, good job. Well done, good luck for your career, mate. That was outstanding. Like, to be able to do that in your second game, basically won on the game. You know what I mean? Like, what do we say? I think he had three goals in the. Was it 3? Was it? Yeah, he had 3 kicks and they were all goals. Were they? Yeah, the whole game. So did that cross-check story? Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much, mate. And you have a bit of a laugh now. Like, some of my fondest memories of my footy career, like, are the games against Essendon where you have your melees or your fights with Matty Lloyd and those guys, the Nick Nat stuff, the Hawthorn Geelong rivalry with Stevie J and some of those. They're the games, that you really remember. Yeah, I want to get into some of those. You walk into Hawthorn, though, 2001, drafted. And you don't walk into, ultimate success, right? Like, I think what people my age, I was born in 89, so, certainly some successful times during those periods. But, the success of 13, 14, 15 and 8, which you were a part of, early 2000s, what sort of club is it? Like, what are you walking into? Look, it might be a bit harsh to say a bit of a basket case, but it really was. Like, Hawthorn had this great history through the 80s and the early 90s and when they won the 91 flag. And then, like, in 96, you've got to remember, they nearly merged with Melbourne.
And Don Scott had to come out, and there's the famous vision of him holding the Hawthorn jumper up and, trying to sack the board who were going to agree to it and everything. Get to sort of early 2000s, we're still training at Glenfrey Oval, dilapidated, shocking facilities. There's no wings because it's on a train line. So, to do full ground training, was outrageous. And there was an element of Hawthorn that were holding on to past glory. They lost the preliminary final by under a kick to Essendon in 2001. And I think internally and externally, the footy world, certainly the Hawthorn supporters, thought we weren't far away from maybe winning another flag. Traded out Luke McFarlane and Trent Crode to get the number 1 draft pick, which was quite controversial. Who was it going to be? Because there was only 3. There's Luke Ball, Chris Judd, or Luke Hodge. And we go with Hodgie. And it takes him a couple of years to sort of adapt to city life, being a good Colac boy. Juddy bursts on the scene and wins a Brownlow and a flag quite early. And John Turnbull, the recruiting manager that picked Hodgie, got sacked because of that. Yeah, because of that. So, because it was only sort of two and a half years in. 2004, he got the arse. Schwabby loses his job, and we missed the finals in 2002. We missed the finals in 2003. 2004, we finished 15th, which is second last on the ladder, win 5 games, lose the coach. Crawford stood down as captain. We had no CEO, gone. So Jason Dunstall's an interim CEO. We're still training at Glenfrey Oval. It's as bad as it gets. So that, and then...
What turns it?
Well, what turns it is Jason Dunstall and the board, but a lot of credit has to go to Bunghole. He hates getting credit for this, but Hawthorn had a bit of a history of going after former players. So Ken Judge, premiership player, was the coach before Schwabby, 2-time premiership player. And I think most of the footy world thought that Gary Ayres or Terry Wallace were going to get the Hawthorn gig because they were past greats. That's what Hawthorn did. So it took a bit of courage for him to go after a young guy who was coaching Central Districts over in South Australia, and he was with Port Adelaide at the time, go after Alistair Clarkson because it was breaking the mould of what Hawthorn was used to.
I think I remember reading it was the first time they'd ever hired a coach that didn't play for Hawthorn.
Yeah, probably.
First time in history.
And so, imagine the risk. And he's young, but he came with he was full of energy. He had a really strong game plan. He brought in, Damien Hardwick and Todd Viney and Ross Smith and great guy, Andrew Russell, who was a strength and conditioning guy, and basically said, righto, we're starting again. We loved what Hawthorn did through the 80s and early 90s, but we can't be clinging on to that anymore. This is your club, and you need to make your own history and your own success. With that came the move to Waverley, which couldn't have come at a better time because all of a sudden we had state-of-the-art facilities.
Yes.
And we just gradually built, on really strong game plan, strong structure, strong accountability to one another. He was ruthless. And if we didn't adhere to his standards and punctuality, training standards and everything, we were down Kerford Road jumping off the pier at 6 a.m. on our day off, and we did that.
I've heard some stories about that from multiple Hawthorn.
Yeah, and we did that.
And he'd be in his car watching or something.
Yeah, he always liked to join us as well.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And quite often someone would be late to the late session. And when I say someone, Zach Dawson.
Yes.
But what it taught us was don't get there and worry about yourself, right? And get there on time and leave a teammate that you knew was prone to sleeping in or didn't have a car or whatever. And then when he rocks up late, crack the shits. Because you could have taken initiative at, 5 a.m. and swung past and got him or rung him or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that real buy-in to the whole group, one in, all in type of mentality on top of Kokoda, sort of plus great recruiting, picking up Stewie Jew, all that sort of stuff. We jumped up the ladder pretty quickly.
Can you touch on Kokoda? And highly disappointingly, I've had 2 trips of Kokoda cancelled.
Yep.
Most recent one this year just gone, 2 days out from going to Kokoda, cancelled for the second time. So I'm, no joke, livid about it.
Yep.
Important to me, but spoken to Zabe about this, Hodgie probably. Ruffy, actually the lads have been through here, and Kokoda. Like you speak about it, it meant something, didn't it? It wasn't just one of these trips you go down south of Western Australia and have a few beers. Yeah. You blokes are doing the Kokoda track. Yeah. And Clarko's treating you like soldiers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And SAS guys were with us, and they would wake you up at midnight and you'd walk through to, an area, and they'd say, turn your flashlights off, righto, picture yourself being 18, 19 years of age with no, fighting experience, and this is a battlefield, of Isharava, and you got the Japanese coming over the hill and there's bullets flying past you. And they really talked us through, Brigade Hill, where, there's still to this day graves and things like that. Yes, it meant a lot because I'm not a historian, but when you grow up and you go through school, you get taught a lot about Gallipoli, or you used to. Like Gallipoli was put on this pedestal.
Yeah.
And you never heard about Kokoda. You do now, I think, because of, sporting clubs and others going there. But back in 2004 when we did it, it was all quite new, and it's on our doorstep. And we got told to read the book by Peter Fitzsimmons. So you do that, and you go over and you do it with 45 of your teammates. It should take 7 or 8 days, and we do it in 3.5, carrying 20-kilo sandbags and makeshift stretchers. And they made it as hard as they possibly could to break us. But we also needed to try and find a captain, and Richie Vandenberg emerged from that. And and just bond this group that Clark had only been there, 6 weeks. So he wanted to see, who quits when it's hard and who's the player that's, motivating and things like that. So it was really beneficial for them, but also as a group, we came back and basically the coaches just said to us, what do you want to stand for as a footy club? And we just kept coming back to Isharava, where there's 4 pillars and one word on each of the 4 pillars: courage, mateship, endurance, and sacrifice. And if we could display those 4 attributes on the field and what they look like, what does courage look like? What does endurance look like? And if we could test our game or mark our performance based on those 4 pillars and the behaviours under them, we're going to be a good footy side, and we mightn't win. We copped some floggings in 2005 and 6, but if you could walk off the field and tick off those 4 boxes, you got a game every week, and we gradually improved.
It's just a great story about, I just think sometimes we sit around watching footy and you see blokes get 30 touches and team wins and as that's a good team of blokes. But hearing, and knowing a lot of, the guys that are on that personally, how you guys built that rather than just, you clearly had talent, right? Especially, some of the guys you had in Hodge and Franklin and Roughhead and Lewis, these sorts of guys, but Mitchell's a, rookie pickup.
Sully, rookie pickup.
Yeah, correct. But then you guys like yourself, your team guys, Shane Crawford's a veteran in that, 08 side. So I think hearing stories like that, it's just interesting because I think most people just say, was this a footy team? Let's do pre-season and roll up and they win and that's how it goes.
Yeah, it was more like Clarko. People ask what makes him a great coach, and he's so good in a lot of areas. Fucking Crash next door there.
What's going on here? What have I done? Rob, what's going on here? So this is great. This is our first day in the studio.
I thought it was a cat at first. Maybe someone trapped in a room. It sounds like someone's trapped.
I love it.
Just a quick request. Can we shut the fuck up? Please. Keep going. Let's keep rolling.
On the Kokoda, you said that a captain emerged. Did you know that was sort of happening? Was there
Yeah, they'd sort of advertised, hey, Crawf's standing down, and there was no succession plan back then. Crawford had it for as long as he wanted it. He didn't want it anymore. And so, we knew that a leader would emerge from it, and it was clearly Richie Vandenberg. But apart from Clarko being really innovative with his, he liked to be ahead of, the trends, not just copy the reigning premier or whatever, which we see a bit of these days. But I think his best attribute was getting average footballers to play at their absolute best, like the role players. And then I put myself in that. And Xavier Ellis and Clinton Young and Rick Ladson and Michael Osborne, Chance Bateman, Stephen Gillum. Like every side has 6 greats. You know, you've got 3 or 4 superstars. And we had, Mitchell, Hodge, Rioli and Buddy, right? But players 12 to 23 are the ones that win your premierships. And he just had a unique ability to really simplify the game. So, like, without being upset, he said, Brownie, we don't want you getting 20 touches on the halfback flank. We don't want you kicking the footy ever, right? Because your strengths are, in the air, bringing it to ground, tackling, one-on-ones, all that sort of stuff. You've got speed, but you're not a great kicker and you're not a great decision maker. So you've got Hodgie, Guerra, Birchall, Burgoyne, these guys who are great decision makers and users. So just give the ball to them and then your job is done, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, it made my life as a defender really easy because I just needed to win the one-on-one battle, bring it to ground, come third man up, spoil, and I wasn't getting judged by super coach points or people in the media going, geez, Brown's only had 11 disposals, right? And it was the same with Michael Osborne up forward, like tackle, chase, pressure, inside 50 contest. It's not about your goals. It's not about your position. And like when you go out there, you can just play without worrying about clearances, disposals, all the other stuff that comes with it in today's game. It makes your life a lot easier. And we just played to our strengths and Clinton Young and Xavier and those guys like ran and carried and we kicked the ball into space and they used their attributes. And that's, apart from Bud kicking 100 and Hodgie doing his thing and everything, if you watch the 08 grand final, have a look at, who the best 5 or 6 players on the ground are outside of Hodgie who won the Norm Smith. It was Clinton Young and Xavier Ellis and Dewey and, Michael Osborne and guys like that. Yeah.
You're selling your own achievements short. You were All-Australian in 2007. So...
Yeah, is that
because of that?
Yep.
Simplifying the game?
No, 100%. And because I had a good vertical leap and good leg speed, and we had a really good system around me, I could play on guys who were 6'5". I'm only sort of 5'10", 177 centimetres. But, yeah, I just don't concede marks inside 50, bring the ball to ground, and I've managed to do that more often than not that season. And get All-Australian.
Were you in the All-Australian?
Half-back flank. So I
thought it was centre-half-back. I was centre-half-back.
Matty Egan. I played centre-half-back all year, and when they read out centre-half-back and Matty Egan got it, who, by the way, never played again after 07,
yeah.
I thought, I'm done, because I was key position. And they put me on the half-back flank, so it was the silky smooth Andrew McLeod on one half-back flank and fucking me.
That's good.
That's fucking good.
Extraordinary stuff.
Mate, Matty Egan, tiny story about him, and it's only tiny. He was across the road from me. Me growing up as a 15-year-old, I had big feet, and he had the same size feet, and him would have been 05. I got Matty Egan's footy boots. And like Matty Egan,
he's a good player.
Yeah, good player, but he had a good 3 years and then was done. It wasn't like it build. It was sort of when he gave me his boots, I was like, who the fuck's Matty Egan? And then it became Matty Egan.
Yep.
And then done. It was in that, wasn't he in the game?
Yeah.
Wasn't it in the 08 granny?
Nah, that was Trent Crow. That was Crody who never played again. But I reckon bit earlier in the year, like around 20 or something, he did his navicular and you can never come back from that, and he didn't.
So that's the big build into 08. Well, what's the day like? Because I mentioned before Shane Crawford, he playing and not that you're defined by premierships, but I think, if you want to win them, but that's why you play. That's certainly why I played. So you got guys like him, but you got the whippersnappers and the talent, and then you got the role players in the middle. What's the day like? How was Clarko's prep for it? What's the day like in 08?
Yeah,
you weren't favourites.
Nah, we were massive underdogs. Cats won 07 by 100 points, dropped one game in 08. We always felt bullish against the Cats, for whatever reason. Clarko would emphasise to us that they hated quick, elusive forwards that could take a mark above their head. So like we had Cyril and we had Michael Osborne, we had Mark Williams, who I reckon kicked 8 against them one year in Cardinia Park, and he threw me forward every time we played the Cats. So we always felt like we could almost get them, you know, and they were the best side in the comp, and we went in there without any pressure at all because we were young. No one thought we could win it, but internally we certainly did. And obviously, you know, they didn't kick accurately at all. They butchered some footy in the second quarter. It wasn't just Moons. Moons the poster child for that because of his miss at halftime and then the start of the third quarter. But they were missing from everywhere, Stevie J and all of them. So, yeah, we stole a flag quite young, and a lot of that was based on the full ground press that we'd started late in 06, we got better in 07, we'd mastered it in 08. Clubs just didn't know how to get through.
Was that like the soccer-based style that Clarko bought that he'd literally based off the EPL?
Yep.
And he'd look at players, how they defended, and they weren't running from side to side, they were defending zones?
They were defending grass and space, you know, an area. And a little bit of water polo. I think he'd done a bit of homework on that where they defend a certain spot. And then we just trained it meticulously for like 2.5 years. And we always had a camera on training, like a full ground camera.
Up in Dad's cherry picker.
Yep. And after every session, we would watch the clips and he would say, you know, you're caught in no man's land. When someone ahead of you goes, you have to go. Even if you think it is the wrong decision, you got to go because it's like green, it's like a stop sign, you know. Yeah. There's red and there's green. There's no yellow on this footy field because you don't have time to get caught in the middle. Otherwise, they'll get through. And by then, we were just all moving in sync, and no club could get through us. So we breezed through the qualifying final, and we breezed through the preliminary final, and then we got to the granny. We were fit. It was a hot day. We were a fit team. But in saying that, we lost Trent Crode in the second quarter. He never played again. We lost Clinton Young the start of the third quarter. He was done for the day. We're down to 2 on the bench. Chewy was starting to cramp. That's why he got thrown forward. It wasn't a coaching master class. You know, yeah.
So he was starting a bit of...
Yeah, he said to Andrew Russell, mate, I'm gone. Like, I can't run. And he said, well, there's no one left on the bench because I think Chance Bateman had gone to get his chin stitched up and someone else was done. And so he said, mate, you're going to have to go forward. Just rest in the forward line. And he had that 10-minute period where he kicked a couple of goals.
Well, it was a 10-minute period, wasn't it? It's funny with grand finals, you know, it's difficult to remember every moment, right? But there's moments in grand finals that people remember, you know, ours, Dom Sheed from the boundary.
Yeah.
But like Stuart Hughes, it wasn't even 10, it was like 6 minutes of play. Yeah. And he kicked 2, set up 2.
Yeah.
Game over, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
From a man that, and you know, I'm well out of shape at the moment, so I'm not going to speak about fitness, but it's not like he was the picture, Nick Dacos of footy, of fitness, right?
He worked really hard.
He was an impact player.
Yeah, he'd worked unbelievably hard to get himself fit from when he got to Hawthorn in the pre-season. He was walking out to Waverley before training started, which was like 20 Ks. You know, worked really hard. And Clarko got him specifically for grand final day experience because he'd won one at Port and none of us had been involved. So he was instrumental. And then for him to play that cameo was unbelievable. And my favourite grand final moment is there's like a 3v2, Mark Williams versus Stewie Jew, and there was like handballing. There's like 3 or 4 handballs in a row, and then Choco Williams gets it and he dribbles it through, and he was banned from doing the shotgun because Clarko hated it. But you just see him on the ground, the ball goes through, and he sort of gives one of those, like a little half one.
Yeah, great.
And then I was playing down back and I was like, cheeky bugger, but like that might have won us a grand final, you know, and we held on.
He would have said, you can't shoot a shotgun from prime position. There's a sniper rifle. So.
Was that also the grand final that maybe it was halftime, you guys found out they were hanging out in a fridge to cool off?
Yeah, they had some cooling devices down in their rooms, which I don't think played a role, but it was a bloody hot day. I remember that. And, yeah, like I think Clarko did touch on it. Like they're coming down here, they're jumping in a fridge or a freezer. And,
he was a motivational man, wasn't he?
Yeah, and we felt like we were the fittest team in the comp. Andrew Russell he would tell us, you know, and we had good pre-seasons, and there's a bit of placebo about that. Like, we might not have been, but if we believed we were, then our second half was going to be better, right? Because they're tired.
Yes.
And you run on a bit of that emotion and Croft's last game and, Mitchell's getting tagged by Lingy who was keeping him really quiet. So Clarko gave him a real rev up at halftime saying, like, we need you. You've got to be better in the second half, which he was. So we had plenty of improvement in us in that second half, even though we were getting absolutely destroyed. We looked up at the scoreboard and we were somehow in front, like pure ass. Yeah. Youngie kicks a goal from 60 down the other end. Cam Mooney misses from the top of the goal square. Like, it was one of those. We were kicking goals like that we shouldn't, and they were missing goals they shouldn't.
And that's how footy's decided.
Yeah.
We've heard lots of questions, answers and stories around Clarko and his motivation. And you copped him early days. So I just wonder, like, I've heard he's dressed up as the English marching bands. He's playing Taylor Swift, Hilary Duff pre-game.
Yep. Miley Cyrus as well. The climb.
Yeah, you're there for that. Like, have you got favourite Clarko moments? Because funnily, like Adam Simpson, who was a coach under Clarko, he'd pull that shit as well. And I'd be sitting there pretty. I used to like get in the zone, probably similar to you, like to annoy my opponent a lot. But I was sort of pre-game. I wasn't really listening to what was going on. I was like, yeah, come on, just get me out there. I just want to bash someone. He'd be rolling out and he'd be telling stories about his dog, walking his dog in the middle of the day, and his son Owen fighting some bloke after school. Yeah. Clarko was that. That's where he got it from, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, there's a couple that stand out. One, he got a 12-year-old Jack Viney up before a game because he was Todd's son, obviously. He was an assistant coach. And Jack had just broken his hand or got a Friday detention or something at school for belting a bully, right? And so we didn't know a lot about Jack, and he's gone on to be one of the greats of the game, But he wheeled him out pre-game and said, hey, come here, son. And he's standing there like in front of the Hawthorn side and gave this big spiel about how you got to stand up for yourself and stand up against bullies, and we're not going to let this side bully us, and we've got to be more like Jack, right? Which was great.
Did you win?
I can't remember.
You roll out and get rolled.
I wasn't involved in this, but Ruffy tells it. I don't know if he's told it on your podcast already, but the game in Sydney where Clarko ducked out of a team meet, he came back in the full Beefeater guard outfit. He told that.
So good.
Yeah. And said it's the changing of the guard because there was no Mitchell and no Saul and whatever.
No one got it. They were like,
no. Like, so I think you've got to be a bit eclectic as a coach, like, and you're constantly looking at different ways to motivate a group. It'd be hard, like to week in, year in, year out to try and draw inspiration. So
I'm sure you've told this 1,000 times, but the line in the sand game with Essendon and Hawthorn, it just made me think of it with the change room motivation. And I'm fair footy enough here. I like my footy stories. That's why we do this as a podcast. But I don't know if I've really heard anyone say it properly, or at least I can't remember. Were there people in the rooms at halftime telling you?
Dermy.
Right. So that happened, did it? He's like, so how's it? Like, I would ask, like, how that's back in the day sort of operation, like walking in the rooms and.
Well, he was a director,
right?
But you didn't see directors. No, never. But it was 2004, and I reckon there was a Hawthorn grand final reunion happening, right, for that game, because I reckon in '84 they might have lost to Essendon. There's a lot of the past players there, and we had been beaten up by Essendon for 8 or 9 years. Like, I think they won about 15 or 16 straight over 8 years. And they had a really tough side, Solomon, Mark and Jason Johnson, Barnard, some really tough players. And they were just physically, intimidators. And that Hawthorn side of the early 2000s were, the men for all seasons side. We didn't get in too many scraps.
I mean, Durham probably at some stage was one of those guys. Yeah,
no doubt. But I think Robbie Campbell had got the footy right on halftime, and Mark Johnson tackled him. Umpire blew the whistle for a ball up, and Essendon being Essendon, Mark Johnson picked him up and drove him into the ground, which he'd be reported now, but back then it was okay, and knocked Robbie out.
Right.
And
mate, you get 10 weeks for that now. Seriously.
we didn't do anything. And the siren sounded and we just walked down the race like a normal half time to, hydrate and do whatever. And Peter Schwab, who was always quite a mellow, cool, calm, collected coach, he didn't even raise his voice too often. He went ballistic, and so did Donald McDonald and Calvin Moore, who was an assistant. Like those old school guys were like, when are you blokes going to stick up for yourself? That's an absolute disgrace. What just happened? He knocked out one of our young blokes, and no one did anything. And then I remember Schwabby he was yelling, like he goes, the only way Mark Johnson leaves the footy field in the second half is on a fucking stretcher. And so we're starting to sort of get wound up, right? And then Dermy enters the change rooms and specifically grabs Nathan Thompson, myself, Richie Vandenberg, like 4 or 5 guys. And while he didn't say go out there and start a wild melee or whatever, he basically just said, hey, guys, it's time to draw a line in the sand because this is what's been going on every time we play us and it's not acceptable. So go out there and just have a crack.
Was it fired up?
It was fired up. And if you don't win the game, at least win the fight sort of stuff. So we went out there and like she was on for young and old, which, line in the sand game. Yeah.
It's funny you laugh about it now because I think you can to a point. And I'm sure there's some people listening, there was some thuggery and there was this and that. Well, sometimes in that 120 minutes or being in that moment as well, in the rooms with having a legend of the football club pull you aside and go, this is when you're in that moment, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, whatever. I don't know how you feel about it, whatever happened, but you that's where you are in that moment. You're not thinking about next week. You don't even think about after the game. Well, Dermot Brereton and others are like, well, this is what's going to happen, and so that's just how it happens. I don't know if you're the same way, but I put myself in your shoes.
Nah, very much.
So Worsfold's telling me, I'm like, no worries, Busher. I'll kill him, no worries.
I grew up with 2 posters on my wall, Tony Lockett and Dermot Brereton, right? So like when Dermy comes up to you as a director, but also an idol that I looked up to all my life, who played footy the right way. He dished it out, but he copped it and he was successful. And like we were devoid of anyone like that in the side. When he grabs you and says, son, because I was only 20, like go out there and have a crack for the jumper. Like, yeah, you're going out and having a crack. I didn't know what was going to eventuate. I ended up getting 4 weeks and fined and whatnot. But
what was you getting? What would you get like if it happened?
Well, there was no vision. Me and Jason Winderlick were coming off. I was coming off with the blood rule, and he was coming off with a blood lip, and we clashed on the wing.
How did you get the blood lip in the first place?
Justin Murphy hit me from behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we clashed like sort of 2 blokes sort of chested each other, and I came through with a right hand and hit him and flashed him, and the bench saw it and went off.
Yes.
But the MCC grandstand was getting renovated, so there was no vision. So I reckon 4 was a bit light.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. I thought it might have been. I got a few more just stories to throw at you, and one of them was, sorry about the heat and the crash next door. But,
all right.
We'll sort the kid out later. Not sure.
Your kid, is it?
No, I don't think so. This one was, I was at the footy club and I'm no hero, but I always remember it. And because one, Chris Judd did eye gouge you 1,000%. But 2, I remember you going to the tribunal or speaking or whatever it was and just being like, nah, it didn't happen. Like, just took the complete player's oath and it was just like bad luck. And all through my career, if I was ever in the situation where I could protect another player, I went above and beyond. Like, we had Tom Hawkins one year in a final, like literally just punched me in the head. And I'm good mates with Hawk, and I was being a pest, and I probably deserved it. He didn't mean to, but flushed me and knocked me out.
Yeah.
And I rang them, and I was like, boys, whatever you need, you want me doing a judge duty type operation, cross-examine me, I'll say whatever you like. They didn't put me on the stand. Hawk got 2 and missed grand final.
Yeah.
Not my fault.
Yeah.
But you, Chris Judd, I gassed you, and you just basically said, nah, it didn't happen.
Yeah. Well, again, like, that's how I grew up. Like, the old man would always say to me, like, you never snitch, you never dob at school. If someone belts you, Like you don't lean into the AFL and the umpires like they're the enemy, right? So, and karma comes back around and hopefully you get looked after when you do something wrong. So, yeah, he 100% eye gouged me. There's no doubt there.
Did you get looked after with something?
I was going to say, did you get the karma back? Or?
Well, what happened, it ended up being a really big story because he was leading the Brownlow at the time. So Brownlow's betting suspended. Chris Judd reported for eye gouging is a story any day of the week. And then he got a 1 week suspension. And they went to the appeals tribunal and contested it. And that's when I got called up and gave, the glowing evidence to get him off. And I was wrapped he got off.
Black eye, just like,
I've got a detached retina, but like...
I don't know how it happened.
something else.
At no stage was his finger in my eye socket, like I couldn't see who I was talking to. But like it didn't bother me. Like nothing on the footy field ever fazed me. I was always like, for that 2 hours, you do it and you do whatever it takes to win. And you might step over the line, but then afterwards, it's like, all right, how do we help you get off? How do we get off? And what does next week look like? So, he got off. The narrative sort of changed a bit that I was making it up a little bit and whatnot.
You were.
Yeah, true.
Not the way everyone thought.
And then Mike Sheen asked me if I told a fib, right, on the couch. And being, a bit of an honest straight shooter, I said, yeah, of course I was telling a fib to the tribunal. Like, I didn't want Juddy to get rubbed out and the footy world didn't want him to get rubbed out, so I lied to him. Well, I got off air. Mark Evans, CEO of the Gold Coast Suns now, he rang me, goes, mate, we might have a problem. I've just got a call from Adrian Anderson, footy operations at the AFL. You're getting suspended for bringing the game into disrepute.
Oh.
And I go, what? He goes, yeah, mate, no one's ever admitted to lying at the tribunal.
So you got a week?
They offered me 3 weeks, right?
What?
They offered me 3 weeks. I said categorically, I'm not copping that. They said you need to come out and issue an apology, right? Because I legitimately got conduct unbecoming for bringing the game into disrepute. And I said to Adrian Anderson, I had to go into the AFL house. I said, mate, I'm not apologising. And you're giving me three times what Juddy did for eye gouging me. So how the fuck does that work? And he said, well, you're going to get fined then, 15,000, 7.5 suspended, right? And if you lie again to the tribunal, we will enact so I copped 7.5. I did lie to the tribunal heaps of times again, but I just never admitted it.
Yeah, call in a minute.
And I sent Juddy an invoice, right, as a joke, because I love having a bit of fun off field. And he never got back to me. And then he started to do the Friday huddle on Triple M with a really good mate of mine, Luke Tunnicliffe, who's their producer. And I relayed this story. I said, yeah, what are you doing tonight? He goes, I got Juddy. And I said, oh, mate, tell him I'm still waiting for, that $7,500 invoice that I sent him. And he laughed. He goes, I'll pass that on to Juddy. And then I get a call like a week later. And he goes, mate, Juddy said, buy this stock, hold it until he says, don't buy it anymore, right? So I bought it, I held it, get another call saying, mate, it's time to sell. So I sell, right? And I made a hell of a lot more than 7,500. So he repaid the favour.
The karma.
Judd Investments. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it.
Right. So it's not insider trading.
No. He wasn't on the.
Sure you haven't.
He wasn't on the board of. He's just
for the ATO call or something.
He's just a well-researched guy. Yeah, financial review operator.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just wanted to clarify that.
That's brilliant. I've never heard that.
Yeah. So no, we had a big fill up, me and Juddy.
That's great.
So we're square. In fact, I probably owe him. Yeah.
That's great. Premiership at the Hawks. You moved to the Gold Coast as one of those guys that was picked up and brought into that side as, I'm trying to think, Bocky?
Yeah, Bocky, Riscatelli, Brennan, Cracker, Harbrow, Ablett.
Yeah. So what's the exit like from Hawthorn to Gold Coast?
Really good. The game had changed a lot in those couple of years. So no deliberate rush behind, rule gone. They tightened up the rules for deliberate out of bounds. Chopping of the arms. So, I was becoming redundant.
All your tricks.
Yeah, mate, they win everything. So I was getting used as a defensive forward for most of 2010.
Yeah.
Which was frustrating, because you're all Australian 07, integral part of the premiership in 08 in the space of sort of 18 months with a few rule changes and a PCL and just the game evolving, I was still playing okay footy, but I sort of lost my purpose at Hawthorn. So desperate to stay there, but realised from a professional point of view, like it was probably the right decision. And Hawthorn offered me a 2-year deal, same money I was on. And Gold Coast offered me a 3-year deal, like way better money, vice captaincy or deputy vice, and the opportunity to, if my body was good and the young team was, making progress, that why couldn't I play a 4th year or a 5th year, right? And so when I sat down with Clarko, we had pretty open dialogue all through the year, and I rang him and said, look, been given, a reasonably good offer from the Gold Coast. And he sort of said, oh, son, I think you should take it. Like, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
And we had Whitecross, Bruce, Suckling, Geray, Stratton, like the next wave of Hawthorn premiership stars coming through. So I sort of read the tea leaves a little bit and went up there and knew it was a tough decision because we're in premiership sort of mode. And I knew by going up there, like that was the end of football as I knew it. There's no 80,000 at the MCG. There's no big, Easter Monday games or games against Essendon with real history and vibe. It was a new challenge. It was probably a bit harder than I thought it would be.
I'm interested to know, Gold Coast haven't played finals in their history.
Yeah.
And GWS come into the side, into the competition, and they built their list differently to Gold Coast. I don't think that you can argue that. And given that you were part of, early days Gold Coast, do you think that what do you think about, the history of Gold Coast and how it was set up? Do you think it could have been done better? At the time, it could have been the right play?
Yeah, I think like two stark ways of looking at how lists were built. GWS did it one way and we did it another. I would say to Tassie, if Benny Gale and whoever's going to go down there and coach, or to the AFL, we had a lot of inexperience across the board, right? And that's sort of having a go at anyone, but John Witherup was the president, really successful businessman up on the Gold Coast, great guy, did everything for the club, but he didn't have a lot of footy knowledge, so inexperienced from a president's point of view. Travis Old was a first-time CEO, right? So doing a great job, got the sponsors sorted, but he'd never been a CEO before. Guy McKenna, he was an assistant coach to Mick Malthouse at Collingwood, but he'd never been an AFL senior coach before, so bit inexperienced. Marcus Ashcroft, great footballer, premiership player for Brisbane, never held the title of footy manager. Gary Ablett, never in the leadership group at Geelong, our captain. Shane O'Brien, straight out of the game, hadn't been a coach. Dean Solomon hadn't been a coach. So I just personally feel like we were littered with inexperience. Bocky and I had never been leaders. I'd never been in the Hawthorn leadership group. And so that's one. I think, there was clearly an error made getting the Weapon as our strength and conditioning coach in year one.
Was the Wep?
Yeah, he left Geelong on a 3-year deal, came up to the Gold Coast. They fucked him off after 1 year. He went to Essendon.
Well, I was about to say at least it could have ended worse.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, allegedly.
But then we were sort of left in year two without a fitness guy because they didn't have the money and I think the biggest thing for me coming from Hawthorn, I'd seen Clarko build a strong side based on performance integrity. So if you played well, you kept your spot. If you knocked the door down at Box Hill, you came up and you're equipped to play at AFL level. We sort of had a philosophy there. We got 20 first-round draft picks. Bennell, Sam Day, Gorringe, Caddy, Mav Weller, O'Meara, Swallow, great footballers. Let's just play them. And they'll be better players at 20 games than they are 10, and they'll be better players at 50 games than they are 20, right? But in truth be told, at AFL level, if you're not actually teaching them the right methods and have a great development program and the players quickly work out, I'm going to get a game every week no matter what. So if I don't put in an effort there, I don't chase, right? There was no repercussions. Very rarely were any of those guys dropped to the reserves for a week or two, right? And the guys that are dominating at NEFL level they also have a bit of an understanding. Well, it doesn't matter how well I play because I'm never going to bump, Harley Bennell out of position. So I just feel like the early days, we gifted a lot of games to some guys, which you have to do, but you got to get the balance right, And we didn't get it right, and then Bluey leaves. Rocket comes in. I wasn't under Rocket, but a lot of those guys didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel, so they started to leave, one by one. Caddy, Prestia, Charlie Dixon, May, Lynch, like they'll go and they chase success, and I don't begrudge any of them for that. And they a lot of them got success elsewhere, So could it have been done different? Yes. If it was done different, you're not going to keep all those guys, but you'll keep Charlie Dixon, who's a Gold Coast boy. You'll keep your captains. You know what I mean?
All those names you just said, like if that was the actual team, like just think about how they're all superstars.
Unreal. So I mean, there's a lot of reasons as to why the Gold Coast didn't do well, and if you look at GWS, they go and get Sheedy, right? Premiership coach in his own right. They get Choco Williams underneath him, right? Who's a premiership coach. They go and they get James McDonald, who'd been a captain at Melbourne. Chad Corns, premiership player. Dean Brogan, premiership player. Luke Power. Like, they get all these. Gubby Allen, who'd been CEO for a long time. Dave Matthews, who'd been there, littered with experience.
Yes.
Sounds like a lot of people that would set high standards.
Yeah. And just know what it took to sort of build a successful footy club.
A footy club, right?
Yeah.
Not just a business.
Yeah. So that is what I think. It was the main reason. They set a real standard for training and defence first. I mean, our first loss their first win was against us, and they really set this mantra of defence first and wanted to be tough and hard, and which is Choco Williams and Sheeds to a T. And our philosophy was run and carry and create and handball and like flow, right? Very pretty footy. Reckon we lacked a lot of substance. And still to this day, I think the Suns lack a bit of soul. Like they've got the nucleus to be a good side, but when things get hard, who stands up for them? No one. Took Miller.
It sounds like a bit of couple of old, back in the day guys, you and I are talking about this, but they actually lack a bit of shit in them. Like they actually, there's one, Sam Collins has got it in.
Yeah, he does. A Werribee boy.
He's one of the
so does Benny Ainsworth.
It feels like they're starting to add that. A bit of, and it's not meant to be, a bit, whatever, but just having a bit of, all right, it's getting hard. I'm going to do something about it. And it doesn't mean go out and start a brawl.
Not anymore.
You can't do that. We need to be physical. We need to win contests. And at times they've been pushovers in that regard.
Correct. Nah, spot on. And I see that hardness now with Rao, and Noah and
Noah Anderson's tough.
Yeah. So play finals or bust for me this year for them. Yep. They have the side. They've all stayed together. They've got Damien Hardwick. They've now got Rioli. Like, why can't they play finals this year? It'll be on them, if they don't.
Footy trips at Gold Coast. I feel like if it wasn't going on field, at least there was some good parties.
We had some good times. When Thailand in year 1, Ibiza and Barcelona year 2, and Vegas year 3.
Jesus.
And that's one of the all-time lineups.
That's a run.
Were you in charge of those?
I was, yeah. And I never made it to my 4th footy trip because I obviously got sacked. So,
yeah, have you spoken about that much?
Yeah, a fair bit. Maisie and I are good. Right. It's just one of those things that happened, which led to that great Mel clip. When he tells that reporter to go and get fucked.
Is that what that's off?
Yeah. So
at the time, that would have been big for your family, though. I mean,
yeah. Well, it wasn't ideal. Like I'd put a lot of time and effort into the Suns, and I got on really well with the playing group, and was still playing reasonably good footy. So to go out like that was, is obviously not how you want. But
what happened?
Me and Maisie's got no blue, and I belted him
on the piss.
Yeah. We're in LA, West Hollywood. So and look,
we're all dreams got to be made and got to die as well.
And I put my hand up and took responsibility for it. But like these things happen, and then they've happened again to Maisie. So wasn't ideal, but in the end of the day, it's probably serves me right that I finished my career like that. Like, it's probably how I was always going to go out.
Fitting end.
Yeah, maybe not like that bad. Maybe not like that, but like
captain down with the sinking.
Yeah, I would have gone down suspended for something for sure. You know what I mean? Like as an exclamation mark. I was a bit grumpy. But
you mentioned Vegas, and what can you tell us a story around breaking curfew and hanging out with royalty?
So just before you start, so I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" We're doing a bit of research for this earlier today. He's like, "Mate, something about Prince Harry, something about Vegas, and then breaking curfew." I'm like, "Mate, there's something wrong with that story because you don't break curfew in Vegas. There's no curfew in Vegas."
2012 there was. Yeah.
What do you mean?
We did a 2-week training.
You can shut that off, Rob. Tell him to go away. Don't know those. Anyway.
It's Prince Harry.
Yeah.
Scotland Yard.
Yeah, I want to get this story.
2012, we did a 2-week training camp in Flagstaff, Arizona, which defied logic for me because we'd won 3 games the year before. Why are we spending $250,000 to fly 50 people to get altitude training?
You could just go out the back of the hills at Gold Coast.
Yeah, or let's get a couple of development coaches maybe, because we fucking are trying to get 40, 18-year-olds to play footy, right? But no, we had to go to Flagstaff.
Right. This is the Kokoda, you realise, of Gold Coast.
yeah, that's it.
Hawthorn, Kokoda, you got Arizona.
And so we come back via Vegas for one night and we stay at the Luxor, right? And by 2012, I was a Vegas veteran. Yeah, I've done it, I think 14 times or something. So I loved it. It's my home away from home. But because we've got so many sort of 19 and 20-year-olds, and you've got to be 21 over there,
right?
The coaching staff thought it was not fair on half the playing list if, the 21-year-olds could go out and have a night and the others couldn't. So we'd agreed dinner, a few drinks, but 12 o'clock curfew.
I mean, sorry, but
I know. Didn't sit well with me.
Let's just stop off. Let's just stop off in Vegas on the way home.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. If you're not asking for trouble,
bad call.
Just go home.
I know. I thought it was a footy trip.
It wasn't a footy trip.
Let's stop
one night only.
Let's stop in Vegas for one night and make half the boys not go out. Good idea.
And I'm a stickler for the rules, and because I wasn't blessed with great talent, I had to be professional and train hard, right? But a 12 o'clock curfew in Vegas didn't sit well with me. Right?
And how old are you at this point?
28 or 9. Knowing what Vegas could produce post midnight, I just wasn't a fan of it. And it was a Monday night, right? Which I remember vividly. Industry night. So everyone that works, over the weekend, they have a big one Monday night. And one of the best clubs over there is a joint called XS. The coaching staff, the CEO, and some of the corporates that travelled with us needed help booking a booth at XS. And so I booked them a booth, right? Because I have some contacts over there. So I get them a booth. I knew they were there, having a great night. And in fact, one of the coaching staff actually borrowed my shirt, and we swapped, and I put his T-shirt on and he grabbed my shirt so he could get in, right? So I sort of helped him book the booth, and I'd gone back to the Luxor, and Bluey sort of came through the lobby and just made sure that, there was a bit of a head count and everyone was there. And Matty Warnock had been at the club for 9 days. He got traded to the Suns, flew straight to Flagstaff, and he was rooming with me. And I just remember rolling over to him and saying, "Mate, I'm going out." And he goes, "Oh, mate, well, I'll come." He goes, "Where are we going to go?" And I said, "XS." He goes, "What? There's a million clubs in Vegas. You're going to take us to the club where all the coaches and CEO and everyone are." I was like, "A big venue. We'll be okay. We'll be okay. It's huge." So we sneak out. We get a taxi to XS, and I know exactly where their booth is, sort of near the dance floor, front row. So I'm skirting the outskirts of XS, and there's other little booths around. And I've had a few drinks by this stage, and I'm walking through, sort of not a worry in the world. And I stop. I see this ginger-headed guy, and I stop. I go, "Oh, looks like Prince Harry." And then I pause. I look back. I was like, "It is Prince Harry, right?" I go, mate, there's Prince Harry. What's he doing here?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't know, mate." I said, "Well, I'll go find out." So the 2 Scotland Yards sort of standing at the front of his booth, as you can imagine, but they're trying to be incognito.
Yeah.
And I sort of try and make my way in and they stop me and I say, "Oh, Harry, from Australia."
You own us.
And he's sitting there with like 3 guys, so I didn't know who they were at the time. But for whatever reason, he sort of does this to Scotland Yard and in I come. I said, "Oh, mate, trying to make chat." So I was like, "Oh, mate, do you know much about AFL footy?" he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Well, yeah, we've just come from Flagstaff on a training camp," and sort of sit down, make myself at home. Matty Warnock's watching from a distance, and we're talking, right? "What are you doing here?" And he was a RAF helicopter pilot, and these are his co-pilots, and they'd been in Arizona as well doing training, and he'd been given 3 or 4 days off, right? So we're having a chat. I reach in, grab his Grey Goose vodka, pour myself a vodka cranberry, right? I cheers him, tap on the shoulder, Scotland Yard, right? Time to go. Harry waves him away, right? So I go, "How good's this?" So keep having a bit of a chat, and I finish my drink and stand up and like start dancing. Tap on the shoulder, Scotland Yard. "Mate, time to go." Harry waves him away. So, mate, you can imagine how I'm feeling. Yeah. He wasn't speaking to his 3 pilot mates who I thought were boring as batshit. I feel like we've got this connection.
Friends.
Pour myself another drink. And then, because it was 2012, my favourite song at the time was Pitbull, "Give Me Everything to Know."
Oh, yeah.
Right? And for whatever reason, I used to do this thing in Vegas where every hour on the hour after midnight, I'd undo a button so you could tell the time, right? So if you saw me, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I looked down and it must have now been sort of, 1 o'clock-ish. So I've undone one of my buttons and I don't know why, but I lean down and I go to undo Harry's button, right? I get a tap on the shoulder, Scotland Yard. and this time Harry doesn't wave him away, right? And I look down sort of pleadingly like at him, like, come on, man. He goes, "Nice to meet you." And out I go, right? Out I go. And I spent like 20 minutes in there, right? Maximum. We have a great night. We go home, sleep, wake up. We're flying back the next day. Dean Solomon, assistant coach, grabs me at the Vegas airport and goes, great guy. I got on really well with him. He goes, "Brownie, did you break curfew last night?" And I go, "No, mate, didn't do that."
It's like the tribunal.
Yeah. And he goes, "No, seriously, mate, don't lie to me. Did you break curfew?" I go, "No, I didn't, mate." But I didn't want to lie to him because he's such a great guy. He goes, "Well, you did because I was walking with Travis Old, a CEO, and Marcus Ashcroft, the footy operations manager. I was taking him to the bathroom and I look up and not only do I see you in the club breaking curfew, how the fuck did Prince Harry get in your booth?" He goes, "It's the greatest thing I've ever seen." He goes, "I've had to detour them to another toilet to save you," right? He reckons when he saw it, it was just, oh, mate, but yeah, it was just magnificent. That's good. I said, "Yeah, I did." He goes, "Oh, brilliant, I won't tell anyone," and he never did.
Brownie, that is... I feel like you might have told that story before as well. That's got the Cashy United all over it. I like that. That's brilliant. That is one of my favourites I've ever heard. How did he get in your... Very good. Very, very good. I don't know. Do you want to finish up with anything?
Mate, we got so many socials.
I want some socials. Well. All right, I want some socials. Mate, you've been very generous with your time.
Pleasure.
Great journey, great career, premiership player, All-Australian, 2 clubs, and Prince Harry's mate. It's bloody brilliant. It's a perfect way to end it. However, a couple of questions from the audience. This is an opportunity for our audience to ask you the questions. So we're going to some quick fire questions you're going to roll out, Daniel.
Yes, this is from Michael. This is from Bill Baggian. How did you get the nickname Wildcat?
Well, Wildcat. That was given to me by Usain Bolt.
What?
Yeah, he
was in your booth with Harry.
No, he's great mates with John Stephenson, and they came out for Derby Day a couple of years in a row, and Johnny would message me saying, mate, can you send me through some tips for Derby Day? Which I did, which he passed on to Usain, and we went 0 from 10 that day. And when I met Johnny and Usain at Rockpool later that evening, John introduced me as the guy that gave him some tips. He goes, Aussie, you're the wildcat that made me lose, $200 like this. And I was like, yeah, mate. I said, don't worry, mate. Whatever you lost, I've lost a fuckload more than you saying. So this, and then we went out that night, had a really good night, got on the cigars and stuff at Spice Market. And Johnny Steph I said, oh, mate, thanks for last night. It was awesome. Great to meet Usain. And he goes, mate, he woke up this morning. He's like, who was that wildcat last night? So he's just, that's how they call me wildcat.
Very good.
This from Ronick87. How did you get one Brownlow vote against the Eagles in 2008 with 9 disposals for the game when Scully had 6 disposals in the same game? And also ask him how the great Mel Brown bought the same car 3 times.
I played on Quinton Lynch, the MCG, and I think I only had 9 touches, but I had an unbelievable day spoiling and tackling and, doing all those 1%ers. So I was surprised I got a vote, but that's probably why. And, the old man bought me a Mazda Tribute for my 18th. Then about 3 or 4 years later, once I'd established myself as a footballer, I got a car deal due to Bronte Howson, the great East Perth.
Great man, Bronte.
Looked after me for years, so good on you, Bront. And so then I needed to sell my Mazda Tribute, and I'm fucking useless with technology, still am. I didn't know how to put on car sales. I didn't want to have people calling me, whatever. So I got a mate to do it, and about a month later, he said, mate, we haven't had one single inquiry, right? So I rang the old man. He said, what are you doing with your car? And I said, trying to sell it on carsales.com. Can't. He goes, geez, what do you want for it? And I go, mate, I want X amount, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, I'll buy it off you.
Yeah.
So this is the same car that he bought for me.
Yeah, right.
So he buys it off me. Buys it twice,
Yes.
right? Then, mate, this is extraordinary.
What is happening?
Got the phone ringing. We've got a crash next door. We've got fucking blokes trying to come in and loot.
I'm sweating bullets. Wait, keep going.
Okay, so
he's bought it twice now.
okay,
Right?
all right. So he's bought it off you.
He bought it off me,
Yeah.
which a lot of people said, like, that's outrageous. How do you sell the old man the car that he bought for you to start with? Like, it's his car.
Yeah.
Surely you give it back. But,
Yes.
that's not what Mel wanted. And then my sister moved to Perth and she wanted a car over there. And he said, well, I've got this car that I don't use that was Campbell's. Why don't I drive it over to Perth for you so when you get there, it's there. So him and Dr. Bruce Reid, the greatest man I've met in football, loaded it full of about 10 boxes of wine, and they drove across the Nullarbor over 2 weeks just getting
I
pulled.
was going to say how many was left by the time we got across.
And then it's over there for 3 or 4 years while my sister drives it, and then she gets a job back in Melbourne and doesn't want the car anymore. And Mel goes, well, I'll need a car for Perth when I go over there on my holidays, what do you want for it? I'll buy it off you, Pip. So she sold it to him. So the fucking Mazda Tribute that's cost him $30,000 as a brand new one, I've sold it back to him for $20,000. Then he's bought it back again for $14,000. He's bought the fucking thing 3 times and didn't batter an eyelid, Mel. He's still got it in Perth.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that's a great story too. I don't know how many more I've got in me.
We'll give it 2 more.
I'm absolutely sweating.
From John Dawson, what did Gary Ablett Jr. teach you and your teammates at Gold Coast?
Oh, he's the best footballer I ever played with. He's just superb. He's great preparer of the game. Like he wasn't a hard trainer by that stage of his career, but he sort of knew what he needed to do to get his body right. And he taught me a few verses of the Bible. I'm a religious man. So I enjoyed that, Corinthians.
You would have had no idea. None.
He's the best ever, guys. Great guy. So that's purely tongue-in-cheek.
That's very...
And the last one, how do you like your eggs from the Eggman?
How do I like my eggs?
Yep.
Sunny side up.
Brilliant.
Right.
That's
Straight up.
brilliant.
There you
Well
go.
done. I'm sweating bullets. This has been an absolute journey. I feel like it's been a journey.
Yeah.
I think we can get the aircon on now.
Turn the aircon on as I finish up. Brownie, brilliant.
Good stuff,
If
guys.
you enjoyed what Brownie did here on BackChat, you can catch him on the Brownies podcast.
You can, Brownies podcast. Tune in. Yeah. Me and John O'Brien every Monday and Thursday we drop our potties.
Double episodes.
Double. Yeah, he's working me hard, Chuck B.
So we've completed the Holy Trilogy now. We've had all the boys on. I thoroughly enjoy what you boys are doing over there, so make sure you give it a listen. Thanks to our supporters and our sponsors, Paywise, powering the podcast in 25, ID Athletic, Whippersnapper Whiskey, Mumba Digital, Tab Touch, Shelter Brewing Co., Leadville Precinct, One Services, Plumbing and Electrical, Camera Electronic. We get looked after, Brownie.
Like it.
And they look after us. Thank you very much. We are done. We are dusted. I'm going to go and sort this building out. Thanks, mate. Well,
No, my pleasure. I was going to go to a function tonight, but I wanted to go fucking shower up.
thanks, mate. Sorry.